Alright guys, Rooster here in Tennessee. Going to be testing out this Anytone Quad 6 with this 4-pill 2879 standard for Mr. Gary. Does have bias and delay for sideband. There's your on and off switch over here. You want to run sideband, you just flip this switch up over here. This video is primarily going to be focusing on sideband. A lot of times I do sideband amps and I just test them on AEM, and people are like, well, why don't you test them on sideband? It's designed for sideband. So why don't you test it on sideband? Well, if that's the case, you're in for a treat, because I've got this Anytone Quad 6 over here. Now this one is kind of set up to run with a 2-pill 2879C. So it's not going to push this amp really hard on average for like AEM or whatever if we're focusing on average power. But as you'll see, the current that it makes it draw and the power it makes it do is perfect for sideband for this 4-pill. So if you had it on AEM and you were looking at your bird meter on average, you would not be overly impressed, because this radio is only doing between 20 and 30 watts average, absolute max. But it's still doing like 120, 115 watts PEP, which brings me to testing the output of the radio. So we're on sideband right now, and we're just going to show you what we're going to be putting into this 4-pill. So 500 watt slug, that's the middle scale. Not used to really using my 500, usually just use 1000, but we'll check it with a 500 here. And that first hash mark is 50 watts, and the 10 is going to be 100 watts. So check audio, check audio, check audio, check audio, check audio, check audio. And we would probably call that, what, 120 watts or so, you know, give or take. I'd say exactly 120 watts PEP. So that's what we're going to be swinging into it. If you're curious if it does show that kind of power on AEM, just for kicks, this is AEM mode, audio, check 1, 2, 3, audio. It does show the same on AEM, but the average power will be a little bit lower, just the way it's set up. So we're back on sideband. We're going to turn our amp on here. Go ahead and flip the sideband switch on, and we'll take the slug out. That was a 500, as you guys can see, and we're looking for my 1000 watt. Probably the most used slug that I have is this 1000 watt. Here we go. There she is. I'd be lost without it. Okay. So we've got the amp on here. We're swinging about 120 watts PEP into it. Now that's not necessarily the max power we can put in. I generally tell people, you know, you start seeing diminishing returns if you start going higher than that. Like, you know, you put 30 more watts in and you see another 125. It really just doesn't make sense. So usually around the 100 to 120 watt ballpark, swinging into this thing is plenty. We've got our clamp meter here. We are running at 14.7, which is actually a little bit closer to 14.6. And we're just going to speak into the mic and show you how much current this guy draws. So radio check, radio check, radio check, 1, 2, 3, radio check, 1, 2, 3, audio, radio check. So you can see with sideband, because you don't have a continuous carrier, it's very intermittent. But some of the current that you see drawn, even intermittently, you know, upwards of 90 to 100 amps. So yes, sideband is more efficient. It's the more efficient mode of operation. However, it's my opinion, my strict opinion, that it's a little bit harder on your equipment with those intermittent, you know, surges of power. So that's my opinion on that. I have found people tear up a little bit more stuff on sideband, it seems like. But if you're careful and you know what you're doing, have a good SWR, you still shouldn't have any trouble. But because of that, because of the way sideband works, you need a bigger power supply. You could be putting your power supply in a bind if you don't have enough juice. This amp on AEM, you can run with about 70 to 75 amps and be okay. You go to sideband, you saw what it was doing, 90 to 100 amps intermittently. So we can test it on AEM too, on peak, if you guys are interested. Oh, we didn't show the power output. So yeah, that's what everybody came to see, right? Power output, so 120 watts peak in. Remember, this amp is biased, so it's going to do a little bit less than if it was a straight Class C amp, but still going to show some good power. So bottom scale, 1000 watt slug, Check, check, 1, 2, 3. Check, check, 1, 2, 3. Audio, check, check, check. Audio, check, check, check. Audio. So 800 watts PEP. If we want to go to AM, audio check, 1, 2, 3. Audio check, 1, 2, 3. Audio check, 1, 2, 3. Audio. There you go, 800 watts. I'm just curious to what this thing's going to draw on AM. Hello, audio. So it's not drawing much. So you're like, well, how in the heck is it doing 800 watts PEP and it's only drawing like 40 amps? I'll tell you why. Because remember what I said about this radio? It's not cranking out 50 and 60 watts average. It's actually probably doing around 20 to 30 watts average. So the average power is what makes you draw a lot more current. So yeah, it's showing 800 watts PEP, but it's only probably showing a couple hundred watts average. Hence why it's only drawing 40 amps versus on sideband, it's drawing like 100 amps. But that's it, guys. That's the 4-pill 2879 standard. This is not a C-box, so definitely stay below 15 volts. I recommend, 14.6, 14.5, something like that. But this one's for Mr. Gary. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Questions, comments, complaints, let me know. Shoot me a text, 423-299-3535. Rooster in Tennessee. More videos to come. Catch you guys out there. See you. Bye.